Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. A calm breeze blew through the windows as the young Cage relaxed in his office. The night was always a blessing compared to the scorching mid-afternoons. He sat in his office, staring at his own hands, his own rough hands. He has been thinking the same thing for the past couple of days now, thinking about the important question. He saw the calendar on the wall and noticed something. Today was the anniversary of the day when he was first instated as the Cage. After all these years, he still had his doubts. Gaara sighed as he leaned into his chair. Was it really worth becoming a cage of a village? He didn't know anymore. Did he really think that by becoming the Cage, everyone would no longer fear him? Whom was he kidding? Of course there was going to be some people who still saw him as a monster, but there were others that once saw him as a monster had changed their ways. Did they genuinely change their views, or did they change because they were afraid of him? Afraid of the power that he had? He just didn't know anymore. He only accepted this job from Baki because of him. Flashback. Why is it so important that you would risk your life to become Hokage? The man next to him stayed silent. People have asked him in the past and he always gave them the same answer. I want to be Hokage because it would mean acknowledgement. The two men sat under a shady tree playing shogi. It turned out that the both of them played shogi in their spare time. Shogi allowed them to take a break from reality, allowed them to forget the problems that they were constantly faced with. It was a while before either of them spoke again. We're different from most people, Gaara. We have been through too much hatred to give up now. By becoming Hokage of our respectful villages, it would show these narrow-minded villagers that we are no different from them. We are every bit human as they are. The man said while moving a piece up. Your move. Gaara stared at the board, pondering about his next move. He could move this piece over there and win the match, but this opponent wasn't just anyone. He was a similar being. Naruto Uzumaki. He held him in the highest respect. Gaara weighted his options, wondering if this was the best move or not. He decided to risk it. It was either do or die. No turning back now. Naruto sat there as he watched Gaara take his bait. Check. He heard the young Cage speak. Watch the way people move, Gaara. There is always an ulterior motive, Gaara. Remember that. Naruto moved the piece before into a different position, ending the game. Check and mate. Gaara stared at the young man before him. He felt himself letting out a small chuckle. You are a strange one indeed, Naruto. Flashback end. It has been a while since they last communicated. His duties as Cage have left him with no time to travel out of the country, much less to visit people important to him. The last time he visited Konoha was a year ago when he was on a diplomatic visit. Hello, Gaara. A cold voice spoke up. The cloak flapped against the breeze, hiding the person's physical features nicely. Gaara immediately turned his chair around, his sand already making their way towards the intruder. He narrowed his eyes, trying to recognize his assailant. Cripple then ask questions later. That has always been his style. He raised his left hand, commanding the sand to surround him, intending of crushing his midnight visitor. I'm hurt that you don't remember me. He's fast. Gaara thought as the person disappeared, avoiding his sand. He turned his head around and was surprised to see the person standing in the light, revealing himself. It took him a few seconds to recognize his intruder. It wasn't hard to identify him. He only knew a few people that had blonde hair. Tamari was traveling to Konoha to visit her sorry excuse of a man boyfriend, and then there was Naruto. Why are you here? The Kagekage asked, lowering his sand. It was rare for a ninja to show up in his office unannounced. Shouldn't you be in Konoha doing guard duty or something? I no longer have respect for those fools. Naruto coldly answered. They can rot in their own filth. Gaara noticed the tone difference in his friend. It sounded more distant, as if it was trying to cover up something. Something serious must have happened if Naruto showed up in his office near midnight with no explanation at all. Gaara also took note that Naruto's facial expression was different. His face no longer showed emotion except when the subject of Konoha was brought up. Anger and hatred could be seen from his eyes clearly for a split second before disappearing. He could only venture a guess about what happened. You have to tell me something, Naruto. I don't have to tell you anything. Naruto replied, snapping at Gaara. Realizing what he did, he apologized. Sorry. I'm just exhausted. He closed his eyes and massaged his temples. It has been a hectic week, running non-stop from Konoha all the way here. I just need a place to stay for one night. Gaara reluctantly gave in. It was unethical for a cage to house a missing nin, but this was his friend. His very first friend. Stay in my spare room. I'm sure you know where that is. Naruto nodded, and walked towards the window. He stopped when a sand-shaped hand blocked his exit. Do not wake Matsui up. She had a long day. Naruto raised his eyebrow to question Gaara but decided not to when he saw that Gaara death-like glare. The sand slowly dropped to the ground when the two nodded their heads slightly, a silent agreement between men. Naruto disappeared in the night, leaving Gaara to follow behind. Next morning, Gaara stood outside the door, wondering if it was wise to knock or to just open. If he decided to just open the door, he might see something he didn't want to see, whereas if he knocked and awakened Naruto, he would probably end up with a Rasengan to the face. It was already 10 in the morning and Matsui would probably him for making a mess in the house. Naruto. I'm coming in. Gaara said out loud. He figured he would give the blonde a warning before he entered. He leaned against the door, trying to see if there was any movement going inside. Surprisingly, he heard nothing. Taking his chances, he slowly opened the door. He expected the blonde to be snoring or lying unconsciously on the bed. Given his appearance from last night, he half expected him to be knocked out for at least 2 days. Naruto. No answer. Gaara looked around the room. It was still clean, as there was no sign of a person ever living here. Naruto. Are you in here? He asked once more. He looked around in the room, noting that the bed has not been touched but there was something by the table. By closer examination, there was a note left behind that was intended for him. Gaara. Staying here would cause your village trouble. We can't have a missing nin cause trouble for you now. I'll deal with these problems myself. Gaara stared hard at the piece of paper, reading it over twice. That fool. He cursed out loud. Why must he always play the hero that takes on everyone else's problem? That was one thing he'll never understand about him. Why couldn't he just care about himself before others? Was that just too hard to understand? Is something the matter, Gaara-kun? Matsui appeared at the door, looking worried. It was unlike Gaara to just curse without reason. Nothing, Matsui. Nothing at all. Gaara replied as he crumpled up the paper. If looks could burn, that paper would have been in hell by now. 2 weeks later. The doors opened in a hurry, revealing an anxious Kankuro. Gaara, I think you should take a look at this. He waved a small booklet in his hands. Gaara continued to do his paperwork, ignoring his brother's presence. This had to be out by today and he'll be damned if he was late to dinner again. Not now. Get out. But I seriously think you should. Kankuro protested. Gaara looked up and glared at him. Fine. Have it your way. Kankuro threw the booklet at his younger brother, knowing that without Temari or Matsui here, Gaara wouldn't listen to anyone. He was so focused on his job that he sometimes forget to eat lunch. Gaara removed the booklet from his face and looked at it. The new bingo book. He looked at Kankuro, waiting for him to further explain. Are you hinting that I should quit my day job and make a career hunting these people? Kankuro rolled his eyes and shook his head. Turn to the last page. Gaara flipped to the last page, his eyes widened from surprise. What the hell is this? This has got to be a mistake. Is this some kind of joke? He threw the booklet down, anger written across his face. On the last page, it was a face that they were all too familiarized with. Naruto Uzumaki. Known affiliates, The Silent Storm. Rank SS missing Nin, to beat on sight. Personal info. Extremely dangerous and should not approach alone. Wanted for the murder and endangerment of Konoha residents. What the hell is this trash? Gaara angrily shouted, demanding an answer. The sand started gathering around Gaara, responding to their owner's intentions. Was this the reason why he left? No, it must be something else. Naruto wouldn't anyone, must less those villagers. Kankuro backed away, actually fearing his younger brother in years. In all his life, he has never seen Gaara this enraged. Not even back during the Chunin exams when his seal was still unstable. I want all trades, alliances, resources, anything remotely connected to Konoha in my office within 5 minutes. Gaara growled. If this was some kind of joke, then by all means, he'll show them what it is like to joke with the cage. Kankuro nodded his head as he left the room, rushing to get the requested items. No one else wanted to be Gaara's secretary and he was the only one stuck doing it. As he thought back to how angry Gaara was, he decided to increase his pace, fearing that this could only lead to trouble. Only a complete idiot would mess with Gaara right now. 1 week later, Shizune checked her watch as she waited outside the doors. If she just slightly pressed her ear against the door, she could hear almost everything that was going on in the room. Shizune decided against it. She would have to trust that whatever they're talking about inside would be relevant. Why must she kid herself? Whenever those two get together, they usually first end up drinking sake before Tsunade-sama loses her temper from something perverted that Jiraiya-sama would say. It was almost like a formula between the two. One can't happen without the other. Get out! Get out! An angry voice shouted. The doors quickly opened as Jiraiya ducked under a flying saucer. Okay. No need to get angry. He shouted back. He quickly closed the door, avoiding a head-on collision with an empty sake bottle. Did you comment about her S again? Jiraiya turned around and released an inconspicuous laughter, knowing that he was caught red-handed. What? Shizune-chan. I'm appalled. How could you think that of me? Shizune shook her head. It was like teaching an old dog new tricks. They never learn from their mistakes. Yeah, the man finally admitted. He had nothing to fear. Shizune wouldn't hurt a person that was like an uncle figure to her. Shizune held the files closer to her chest and stared at the door. She's been depressed since he left, hasn't she? Yeah, couldn't you do anything to cheer her up? Yeah, Shizune felt the last of her nerves twitching. Could you say anything else besides yeah? Yeah, that's it. She had it with this perverted man. No woman could ever have the patience to talk normally with him. She quickly kicked him in the groin before allowing herself into the room. Jiraiya was left outside on the floor, groaning in pain as he tended to his family jewels. Tsunade-sama, are you okay? Shizune asked, concerned for her mentor's well-being. She noticed that Tsunade hasn't been drinking a lot lately and people have claimed to see her actually finishing the paperwork. That itself was frightening. Did I do the right thing? Tsunade looked up, confusion written on her face. Was my actions justified? Ever since he left, she began doubting her actions, wondering if what she had done was right or wrong. Every day, she felt her heart breaking into more and more pieces as she wondered what that boy was up to. I'll watch over that boy. That's what Jiraiya said while trying to cheer her up. Ha, what a laugh. That perverted leech didn't even leave the village to look for him. All he did was stay constantly at her side. She was thankful for that, but she'll never tell. I don't think you're a terrible person, Tsunade-sama. I believe that you did it for the village. You saved his life by granting him his freedom. Shizune replied. He wouldn't want you to be like this. Ever since he left, her mentor was drowning herself in work, believing that it was the only way she could take her mind off her mistake. Even Jiraiya had to take extreme measures, insulting and being more perverted than usual. It has worked to some extent as she begun to show some life, but it was still far from what she used to be. I don't think he'll see it this way. Tsunade said as she rested her chin on her arms. And now Suna has cut off all ties with Konoha. They didn't even give me a goddamn good reason. I'm sure everything will work itself out. Shizune replied. She saw an empty spot on the desk and put some more paperwork down. No one had expected it to happen so fast. Suna sent a messenger bird with a letter personally addressed to the Hokage stating that they were removing all ties with Konoha, ending their alliance, and threatened that if they find any Konoha nin in the village, they are to be executed immediately. It was an understatement to say that the council was outraged. They were furious, demanding to go to war. It took every ounce of persuasiveness from Tsunade to stop it from happening. They just didn't have enough manpower to march straight into the desert and make war with the cage. Tsunade groaned as she noticed that her stack of paperwork just increased by 5 inches within the last 10 minutes. It was just unheard of. Shizune giggled as she watched the frustration and anger appear one by one on Tsunade's face. Don't the papers now. There are some important documents in there. Screw this. Tsunade took one look at the paperwork and made a face. She got up and stretched her arms, feeling her body coming alive. It's too nice of a day to be spent cooped up in this stuffy office. She made her way towards the door and motioned for Shizune to accompany her. Shizune gladly accepted the invitation. It was really a nice day, and maybe it was a new day for a new beginning. As months passed, the village began to recuperate, rebuilding itself from the damage. Villagers were once again happy, knowing that their children were safe. The entire military division of Konoha began to reevaluate their standards, making sure that nothing like this would happen again. Konoha had also begun to offer more training to ninjas, allow them to prepare for any type of situation. Missions were still being given and completed at the usual rate. Even Kakashi had begun to show up on time, which surprised his team. Sasuke and Sakura were still going out but were taking it one step at a time. Neither one wanted to rush and destroy the relationship that they worked so hard to build up on. Sakura had to sometimes watch Sasuke in case he overdid himself with training. Ever since he was found beaten on the ground, he had taken it on himself to increase his training regimen. No one knows what happened that day, but they could only guess. Team 10 with their sensei, Asuma Sarutobi, continued to negotiate with Suna, on a discreet note. Their correspondent, Tamari herself. She was in love with her pineapple-shaped boyfriend, but she was too proud to let him know. He was the only reason she ever came back to this place. The group was working on a plan to somehow reunite Suna and Konoha, but as their plan goes, they weren't making much progress. Guy's team was always Guy's team. Lee and Neji was out of the hospital but was still in no shape to do missions. They were taken off the active duty list and were recovering surely but slowly. That explosion left them scarred for life, a reminder that they were lucky to be alive. Tenten was moved over to Kurenai's team to replace Kiba because he was taken off the active duty list as well. In many ways, Naruto's departure led to many changes in the village. Whether it may be good or bad, it still showed them that they were too relaxed and a single man alone was able to cripple half the village's military power. Danzo seemingly disappeared after leaving the temporary Konoha hospital. No one has seen hair or hide of Danzo since the incident, but word on the street was that he was still alive and plotting revenge. 6 months later. Tsunade-sama. Shizune shouted as she ran into the room, disrupting Tsunade from her daily nap. Things began to return to normal after a few months, and Tsunade no longer blamed herself for Naruto's departure. Things were slowly returning back to the way they once were, with Tsunade sleeping and ignoring the paperwork. Huh, Wizat? Tsunade groggily answered. She wiped the drool off her mouth and slowly sat up, wondering what was so urgent that she had to be disturbed. Team Kakashi and Asuma have found the entrance to the Akatsuki base. They are currently engaging Uchiha Itachi and Kisame Hoshigaki in battle. What? Tsunade jumped up, knocking over a pile of paper. This was big news. Akatsuki was on the move lately and no one knew why. Where is the base located? Shizune quickly checked her report, scanning the portions quickly. Kakashi failed to mention their present location. She continued to skim through the report. Tsunade cursed the cycloptic man, damning him and his lazy ways. Tell them to regroup. There must be a reason why those two were the only ones there. Tsunade could feel it in her gut. Something bad was brewing out there and she didn't like it. Shizune didn't bother to interrupt. She could hear the urgency coming from her voice. She was only like this when she truly believed it was a crisis. She quickly excused herself and walked out of the room to do what was asked of her. Akatsuki base. You're really pitiful, Sasuke. You had several teachers and yet you're still weak. Itachi said as he brought his elbow down on Sasuke's left leg, attempting to break the knee. I shouldn't have spared you back then. Sasuke jumped up and performed a roundhouse kick with his other leg, trying to get Itachi to release his hold. Itachi ducked under the kick and forcefully threw him towards Sakura. Sakura braced herself to catch Sasuke, keeping the damage done to them to a minimum. You come in here and expect to me at your level. I'm very disappointed. You don't know anything about me. Sasuke retorted as he pulled himself off Sakura, making sure she was okay before turning his attention back to Itachi. He held out his left arm and took a deep breath. Chidori! He shouted out while rushing forward. The sounds of chirping echoed throughout the cave. Dai Itachi! Sasuke yelled out. He ran straight to Itachi, feeling that today was the day that he can finally have his revenge. Itachi stood there, unfazed by the murderous intent produced by Sasuke. He merely responded by raising his finger, pointing it at Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. Wait. Sakura saw the tiny movement by Itachi and jumped in, realizing that Itachi was planning something. Sakura no! Kakashi shouted. From the corner of his eye, he could see Sakura ignoring his warning. The copy ninja was currently preoccupied with Kisame, as a stand-in replacement for Shikamaru, who was the first to be targeted by the missing nin. With Kisame. That tickled but fun time is over. Get off me. Kisame laughed at the pathetic attempt made by the Konoha nin. There was no way a weakling like that could stop him. They have been fighting for 20 minutes now and he was having too much fun to them. The Akatsuki member proceeded to remove the man, but to his surprise, he found himself struggling to move his own body. What the hell? It takes two to do teamwork. Not one. Shikamaru stepped into Kisame's range of vision, his hands by his side. He would allow the missing nin to witness the technique that was going to be his downfall. Kisame's eyes widened, surprised to see him still standing. I thought why'd you? Nope. You just missed my vitals. Shikamaru wiped the blood off from the near-fatal wound, allowing Kisame to see it for himself. With Choji's strength combined with my Kajimane, the unstoppable becomes stoppable. Kisame gritted his teeth. He didn't like this. He struggled to move his Samahata forward, pushing against the shadows with all his might. Shikamaru grunted as he tried his best to stop the man from moving. Do it now. He couldn't hold it long. Maybe 20 seconds more before he collapses from exhaustion. Kakashi took the hint and jumped over Shikamaru, his hands going through a set of seals at a fast pace. Kakashi gripped his right hand, feeling the flow of chakra going through it. He ran over towards Kisame, with his right arm resembling the Chidori. Kisame saw the attack coming and made an attempt to raise his hand, having the Samahata in front of him to block the attack. Not this time. I've been waiting a long time for this day. From the corner of Kisame's eye, he could see Asuma appearing in front of him. With a quick slash from the man, Kisame cried out in pain as he watched the man sever his right hand off, leaving himself defenseless against the attack. Asuma took a puff of smoke, holding on to this trench knives tightly. He stood there waiting for Kakashi to finish it. Reikiri! Kakashi shouted, extending his arm forward, hitting Kisame above the heart. Shikamaru gasped for air as he fell to the ground, feeling drained. Ino hurried to his side, quickly starting treatment for his wounds. Why didn't you just let me heal you before? Her hands were already starting the healing jutsu, feeling glad that all those long hours spent training with Tsunade-sama was finally paying off. Shikamaru let out a soft chuckle. It was just part of the plan. He felt body reaching out for him, asking for a rest. He couldn't keep his eyes opened any longer and soon passed out from exhaustion. Ino sat there, concentrating on healing his wound, but inside her mind, she was proud of him for holding on this long. Kisame was a man who was known to have a high pain tolerance, but today he discovered a completely new meaning to pain. The wounds he received at the hands of these insects were intolerable. First, he lost his dominant right hand and he was barely alive. Damn these insects to hell. He ignored the pain and delivered a hard left elbow to the back of Choji's, rendering him unconscious. With fluid motion, he took a step forward and caught Kakashi by the throat, gripping it tightly. I'll take your death as payment for my hand. Kisame snarled. He had underestimated his opponents and it has cost him big time. He had to get them now before it was too late. Kakashi struggled a bit against Kisame, smirking before he disappeared in a puff of smoke, revealing a log in Kisame's procession. Kisame was caught off guard by the kawarimi that he failed to notice Asuma appearing right behind the long, his hands on the dragon seal. Kaden. Hi Sekisho, he blew out a lingering cloud of smoke in front of Kisame, trapping him within the cloud. Arg. Kisame took several steps, trying to escape from the scorching smoke. He ignored the pain in his arms, trying to get the smoke out of his face. His cloak was already torn to pieces from the earlier assault. His mind finally registered that the entire fight, from beginning to end, was just a setup for this moment. Asuma, with every ounce of chakra left in him, extended his wind element on his weapon before slicing Kisame in half, ultimately ending his life and ninja career. Asuma walked up to Kakashi, who was barely standing from fighting the S-rank ninja. It took the four of them to bring down this beast. He wondered if they had enough left over to fight Itachi. And then there was two. Kakashi lazily answered as he collapsed in his friend's arm. With Itachi. Sasuke had a satisfied look on his face when he found his arm piercing through Itachi's heart, smirking as he watched Itachi cough out blood, but his expression turned to shock when the Itachi in front of him disappeared into birds. This is how you do it, little brother. Sasuke turned around, surprised to see Itachi racing up to him with a Chidori. How the hell did he put me in a genjutsu? Sasuke shook off that thought, immediately preparing the required hand seals for another Chidori. Bring it, Itachi. He ran towards Itachi, both Uchihas arching their arm back, gaining momentum. Chidori. Both of them cried out. The light was intensified as Chidori met Chidori head-on, each one struggling for dominance. This has to be a joke. Our levels cannot be this goddamn far apart. Sasuke struggled to keep Itachi at bay, making sure he wasn't gaining any leverage. He felt his legs giving out as Itachi continued to push, hands locked in combat. You lose once more, Sasuke. Itachi stood a step forward, using his body weight to gain an advantage. When he saw Sasuke struggling to push back, Itachi immediately withdrew his hands, catching his little brother off balance. Shit. Sasuke felt himself slipping as Itachi released his hand, canceling his own Chidori. Sasuke tilted his head up, to see Itachi smirking down on him. It can't end this way. Itachi quickly rammed his knee against Sasuke's jaw, sending the boy backwards. He saw the perfect moment and struck his arm out, the black color Chidori aimed straight for the heart. The Shinigami will not be claiming Sasuke-kun's soul today, Itachi. Sasuke turned his head slightly to see Sakura standing there, his eyes detecting chakra gathering in her fist. Take this. Sakura slammed her knuckle into the ground, causing a shockwave that knocked Sasuke off his feet, saving his life. Itachi had a look of surprise on his face when he saw Sasuke drop to the ground in front of him, just missing his attack. Sasuke saw his window of opportunity and took this chance to counter. He regained his balance on his feet and landed an uppercut on Itachi. The elder Uchiha took a few steps back, caught off guard from the sudden attack. Itachi wiped the blood off his mouth and smirked. Good try, but it's still futile. Itachi's regular Sharingan changed into the Mangekyo and began to spin. As he began calling forth one of the Mangekyo's technique, something stopped him from moving his body. For a missing nin, you're quite careless. Ino whispered as she appeared behind him. Itachi had no time to react when he felt something stabbing him in the back. Itachi felt his body becoming numb as Ino removed the syringe from Itachi's back. She held Itachi's arm out, preventing him from doing any jutsu. Now Sasuke. Ino and Sakura both shouted. They both knew how important it was for Sasuke to his older brother. Ever since he was a genin, he had been waiting for this day, living in hate and sorrow just to him, and now the chance has finally arrived. Today it all ends, Itachi. Sasuke held out his left arm and took slow breaths. Reikiri. Sasuke yelled out, feeling the power cruising through his veins. This was the improved version of the Chidori, twice the ing power, twice the damage. He had worked hard to get it to his stage, and now, he can finally use it for what it was originally intended for, assassination. He dashed towards his older brother, his eyes guiding his body every step along the way. Itachi closed his eyes, knowing that his death was imminent. There was no use denying it. He had no regrets. He did what was asked of him and nothing more. He felt his heart yearning for him to keep his eyes open, to see his younger brother him. Today you will finally pay for what you did 13 years ago. Sasuke took a leap into the air, wanting to finally feel free from the burden he was given to carry. While he was in flight, he saw no emotions in Itachi's eyes, which pissed him off even more. Even now you still show no remorse for the massacre. He thrust his arm forward, preparing the final judgment for his brother. In a sudden moment, a cloaked figure that stood by the sidelines watching decided to finally make his move. Within a blink of an eye, the figure disappeared from the sidelines and intercepted Sasuke's attack with a kick to the ribs, sending him away from Itachi. Sasuke was sent skidding towards the ground, his left arm accidentally touching the floor, resulting in an explosion. Everyone stood there, unsure of what was going on. The figure stood in front of Itachi, his hands inside his cloak. Sasuke slowly got up on his feet, furious at the newcomer's arrival. Who the hell are you? He spat out. He had so many chances to Itachi and every one of them were interrupted. The figure ignored him as he carefully scanned the crowd. 1, 2, 4 people left. He counted to himself. He turned his attention to the man behind him, finding the scene quite amusing. Itachi, it seems that our positions are now reversed. Itachi raised his eyebrow, recognizing the voice. He tried to speak but found nothing coming out of his mouth. No response. It must have been a pretty strong drug to keep you from talking. If you're with Itachi, then you are my enemy as well. Sasuke disappeared from his position, adrenaline rushing through his veins. He was moving faster than before, but he paid no attention. His mind set on the people in front of him. With his Mangekyo Sharingan activated, he was already behind his brother and this mysterious figure. Nothing will stand in my way. It is my destiny to avenge my clan. Sasuke quickly performed another Reikiri and thrust his arm forward, intending of ending the fight with one blow. The figure took his right hand out of the cloak and grabbed Sasuke's left hand, nullifying the attack. Sasuke looked appalled. He couldn't believe that this person stopped his attack with just a right hand. It was just unbelievable. Are you always this emotional? Why don't you just be a good dog and play dead? Sakura, Ino and Asuma stared at the mysterious person, each wondering who he was. One thing was for sure, he was strong enough to cancel out the Reikiri with one hand. Who the hell are you? Sasuke demanded. He tried to break free from the man's grip but was surprised at his strength. There was no way he could budge from it. The figure frowned before answering him. I'm what you call the calm before the storm. He lowered the hand and applied more pressure, crushing Sasuke's hand. Sasuke screamed in agony as his hand became useless. I'm sorry. Did that hurt? The man then slammed his fist into Sasuke's ribs, breaking several of them. Sasuke dropped to the floor, his body screaming out for mercy. He glared at the man, his eyes glowing with hatred. Sasuke-kun! Sakura screamed. She charged in blindly and was preparing a punch that could rival her sensei's. The man turned his attention to Sakura, ignoring Sasuke for the time being. He watched as Sakura charged in with her hand arched back, intending to smash it in his face. The mysterious figure stood his ground, stopped Sakura's enhanced punch with just an open palm. Everyone winced from the sound of her fist smashing against the man's palm. A painful scream could be heard as Sakura pulled her fist back, several bones broken and cracked in her hand. She sat on the floor, tightly holding her hands while glaring at the man. It's been a long time. Sakura. The figure removed his hood, revealing his blonde hair and blue eyes. Sakura's eyes widened as she recognized the figure. Naruto. Everyone stood there shock. Shock was just an understatement. No one had expected the blonde to show up here out of all the other possible places. Naruto stood there, his face deprived of any emotion as he looked into Itachi's eyes. My debt to you is now repaid, Itachi. A life for a life. Why must you always be in my way, Naruto? Sasuke screamed. It was always Naruto that stood between him and his goals. There was never a time when he had no competition. Sasuke leapt forward, his right hand on the Kusanagi. He brought it down with a diagonal slash on Naruto, aiming to cut off his head. Naruto stepped forward and caught the blade between his fingers, forcing Sasuke to lower the sword. If you weren't worth Itachi's time, you are certainly not worth mine. Just as Naruto was about to say something else, Ino, who stayed hidden behind Itachi, reached for another syringe and jumped behind Naruto, aiming to inject him with the same thing she did with Itachi. Naruto noticed her small figure just in time and turned around, smashing his elbow into Sasuke's face, causing the younger Uchiha to relinquish his hold over the sword. With the sword in his hand, he dodged the stab from the needle by sidestepping the girl twice and ended up behind Ino. Naruto held the sharp sword to Ino's throat, calm breaths coming from him. It's been a long time, Ino. It seems the years have been kind to you. Screw you, demon. Ino sneered. Naruto turned his attention to the others, seeing as how Kakashi was unconscious and Asuma had his hands on his favorite trench knives. If you would kindly let me leave here with Itachi, I can promise to spare your student's life. It's your call now. Asuma gritted his teeth. It was a tough decision. There was no guarantee what he would do to Ino, and he was down 4 men. He tried searching for more answers, but there was nothing more he could do. There was no way he could beat Naruto in his current state. Naruto noticed that Asuma was hesitating for a bit, a grin slowly formed on his face. It's not that hard, Asuma. Let me go in exchange for her life, or else I'll send her body back in a coffin. Naruto informed the man. Konoha will greatly mourn the loss of the Yamanaka heir. Asuma, in all his years of service, was left with no other option but to follow the orders of his enemy. Take Itachi and leave. The words painfully left his mouth, already regretting those words. No, a voice shouted. Sasuke struggled painfully to get back on his feet, preparing to what looks like a final Reikiri. You would risk her life to complete your revenge? Naruto asked. One loss would mean the deaths of several dangerous criminals. Sakura shouted. She was doing everything in her power to not rush straight into the situation. If they could execute this attack, then Ino's death would not be in vain. Ino stared at her best friend straight in the eyes. She couldn't believe what was happening. All the things that they'd been through, and this was how Sakura had chose to end their friendship. Don't worry, Ino. I swear to you we'll get him and avenge your death. No, not this way. I don't want it this way. Ino shouted back. Tears began filling her eyes. She didn't want to die yet. She still haven't done all the things she wanted. She wanted a family, a nice house where her kids can grow up and play. All those dreams that she had started to fade away. Reikiri. Sasuke charged in, aiming to everyone that stood in his path. He had put all his chakra into this final attack. Naruto stood there, shaking his head. This generation of ninjas that Konoha raised turned out to be quite a disappointment, hasn't it, Asuma-san? Asuma looked bewildered as he saw Naruto disappeared out of Sasuke's way, causing him to collide into Sakura, sending them both into the ground once more. He ignored the loud explosion caused by the attack and scanned the area, his eyes finally finding Naruto standing by the doorway, holding Ino in his arms with a cage bushin holding onto Itachi. The deal's off, Asuma-san. I will be sending her back in a body bag. Naruto coldly stated. Wait. Asuma shouted at Naruto. If it meant saving his student's life, he would gladly give up his to save hers. He had already seen most of the world, but Ino hasn't. Before he could do anything else, Naruto disappeared into the forest, taking with him his student and Itachi. 10 miles elsewhere, the Naruto clone dropped Itachi off from his shoulder, earning the Uchiha a rough landing with the ground. The original Naruto carefully put Ino near a tree, tying her up. He splashed some water over Ino's face, awakening her. You will tell me what you did to Itachi. Ino opened her eyes, surprised to find herself staring into the face of her captor. Why should I help you? She spat out venomously. Naruto glared at her. Even in this type of situation, you're still a bitch. Don't you know when you've already lost? Naruto pressed a kunai near her throat, allowing her to feel the coldness of the weapon. They left you for dead. You might as well make yourself useful to me before I end your pitiful life. Ino felt her fears rising from the bottom of her stomach. She was actually scared of this man, scared that he would actually hurt her in cold blood. It was no longer the Naruto she knew. This was the voice of a cold-bloodeder. Are you going to talk? Naruto pressed the weapon in, drawing a little blood. Or do I have to dig a little deeper? It was a experimental paralyzing serum. The effects should have worn off by now. Please don't me. Ino answered quickly, fear taking over her body. Naruto heard some noise behind him and turned his head to see Itachi moving. The Uchiha began to move his body, able to regain feeling over his body once more. A bit theatrical back there, don't you think, Naruto-kun? Naruto shrugged. Whatever works, Itachi. The Uchiha nodded. They have lost track of the boy since he disappeared after destroying half of Konoha's military force. The Kyuubi container was somehow able to avoid their radar, which made tracking him insanely difficult. Why did you save me? Naruto blinked twice, surprised at the question. Nevertheless, he had a purpose for saving his life. I've come to take you up on that offer. Itachi thought it over before answering. In his mind, he was actually impressed with the strength that the Kyuubi container displayed. It would seem like he greatly improved during his travels. We'll be glad to have you. The Uchiha responded, knowing what offer the blonde was talking about. With the loss of his partner, Naruto Uzumaki might make a great addition to the team. Naruto turned his attention to the whimpering Ino, who was sitting there looking scared. Naruto walked up to her and stared into her eyes. I could end your life right here, but I won't. He looked around, seeing if there was anyone nearby. He took out a kunai and held it tightly, a sign that most people do before stabbing or cutting something. Time began to slow down for Ino as she watched Naruto come closer and closer, fearing the moment until he actually reached her. Her mind wandered back to Naruto Uzumaki. The enigma of Konoha. Ino couldn't remember spending that much time with the boy because of what everyone said. She could feel his power radiating off him like the sun giving off warmth. It happened so quickly. In a flash, Naruto just disappeared from their lives and reappeared at the trial to just disappear once more. Now the man was standing in front of her, probably going to end her life. If she could go back in time to change all this, she would make sure this wouldn't have happened. Ino saw Naruto bringing his arms closer and she closed her eyes, anticipating the pain to come. She had gotten cut, stabbed and sliced before, and each time, it still frightened her. She opened them a second later when she felt her chains become undone. Never in a million years did she accept him to do this. If it was the other way around, she would have done the same thing. Ino looked up and met Naruto's eyes, wondering why he didn't her. Why? She whispered out. Naruto stared into her eyes, wondering if she was just stupid or curious. A storm doesn't always hit everything, he replied, leaving her with a cryptic message. Naruto turned around and took off with Itachi towards an unknown direction, leaving her alone in the forest. Hold on, Itachi suddenly answered. They spent hours traveling towards their destination point, but it was mostly done in silence. There wasn't any need for conversation between them. These were two men that spent most of their life alone and isolated from everyone else. They have learned to survive on their own, shunned out by the place they once called home. They were labeled as monsters because of their past, the past which no one can escape but only accept. Uchiha Itachi, the man that single-handedly wiped out his clan in one night, in Uzumaki Naruto, the Kyuubi container himself. Even if they had conversed, there would be nothing to talk about because these were men of action, not men of words. Itachi strayed away from the path and landed on the ground, putting a temporary stop to their journey. We're going back. Naruto landed right next to him, wondering why they were stopping. Is that really necessary? His voice filled with annoyance. Itachi noticed the tone and gave him an icy glare. What does it matter to you? He bitterly replied. Naruto shrugged. I rather not waste my time idling around for useless things. It was pointless to argue at this point. He needed Itachi to get there, and if the Uchiha weren't ready to take him there, he would have to play his game for a while longer. He took the initiative and led the way back, his mind focused on only one thing. The joining. Itachi sighed, shaking his head. I hope the leader was right about you. Itachi followed pursuit, hoping to catch up with Naruto before he left him behind. With Ino, it was a complete understatement to say that Ino was mad. She was beyond mad. Not even the wraith of the devil himself could match what she was feeling right now. As she made her way back to Konoha, she was destroying everything in her path, branches, trees, whatever she could take her frustrations out on. Her day went from bad to worse in a matter of minutes. She continued to curse her day as the scenes replayed themselves over and over in her head. It was unbelievable how well choreographed everyone was. It was as if they all had a part in this grand scheme to make her life miserable. It was no one's fault but mine that I was captured as a hostage, but Ino said out loud. This was a trick that she picked up from Tenten. By saying these thoughts out loud, it allowed her to freely gather her thoughts and approach them in a logical and scientific way. It was also her way of keeping herself calm. She's been known to throw crazy tantrums according to Shikamaru. I should have never accepted this mission. I knew I should have stayed in Konoha. A village is defined by how many missions they receive. The more missions that the village receives, the better their reputation is. Missions are also a way to judge ninjas. The more missions that they do, the higher their status is. A ninja's life is only worth as much as their missions. There was really no guarantee to what the occupation of a ninja would hold, whether they would live to see tomorrow or not. It varies due of the dangerous nature of this job. To throw away my life like some sort of useless trash, that is their fault. Ino released a small growl, gripping her knuckles tightly. It pissed her off when the person who she considered her best friend, her sister, was nothing more than a facade. Ah! Ino yelled out as she smashed her fist into the tree. She winced at the pain but shrugged it off, seeing as how the pain was also relieving her at the moment. Damn Sakura! Ino whispered. Ino took a step forward, preparing to continue with her traveling back home, but when she took that step, she felt herself losing focus for a second. Ino staggered back, pressing her palm to her forehead. Whoa! I must be losing it. An image of Sakura appeared in front of her, a smirk on her face. That must be it. I'm pushing my body too much and this is its way of telling me to take it easy. Ino reasoned with herself as she continued to stare at the image of Sakura that was fixated in front of her. She looked towards another direction but Sakura was there as well. Ino growled in annoyance. Why am I seeing her face now? That's simple, Ino pig. You can't stand the fact that I'm stronger than you and I'm also dating Sasuke-kun. You're just jealous that you can't be like me. A voice similar to Sakura's whispered. Ino felt her body quiver from the voice. After hours of traveling alone, hearing the voice of the person she wanted to get revenge on wasn't exactly her main concern. Sakura, come out here, forehead girl. Ino shouted. She took a glance around her surroundings, searching for any signs of a genjutsu. The Sakura image reappeared in front of her, smirking at her once more. Why? Ino charged forward, her fist arched back. Why the hell are you smirking? Ino cried out as she slammed her fist through Sakura's face. The image slowly faded, leaving the girl completely confused. She had just destroyed a tree but their Sakura was nowhere to be found. Feeling exhausted, Ino dropped to the ground, leaning against the broken tree. I seriously need to get back to Konoha, she whispered into the wind, praying that she'll make it back in one piece. With Itachi and Naruto, why are we going back? Naruto inquired. He already knew the answer but he didn't know for sure. There were some uncertainty in the air and he hated that. It was just one of those rules that men make for themselves. For him, there were a few rules that he lived by and it has gotten him through life so far. Never trust anybody and never assume anything. Those were his top 2 rules. I need to bury his body. Itachi answered. Not many people knew this but they had a bond between them, a bond that was between brothers. They have been partners ever since he first joined the organization, and it would be dishonorable to leave his friend like that. I don't see that as a valid reason for going back. He's dead. There's nothing we can do. We should be moving. Before Naruto could finish that sentence, he was slammed into a tree, Itachi's hand tightly gripping his throat. Itachi stared into the man's eyes, his Mangekyo Sharingan spinning rapidly. This is not about what you want to do. This is about what I want to do. Itachi coldly exclaimed. Open your damn eyes, Itachi. He died because he was weak. The weak has no place among the strong. He might be a partner, even a friend to you, but to me, he was nothing. Naruto retorted in an equally cold tone. Both men stared at each other, neither moving a muscle. Itachi finally relinquished his hold over Naruto, dropping him to the ground. If you ever disrespect Kisame again, I will you. I would like to see you try Uchiha-san. Naruto whispered, putting emphasis on Itachi's clan name. Tension began to rise up between the two, each glaring at each other. Itachi stood near Naruto, his figure looming over the man. Don't try me, Uzumaki, or I'll show you what a real Uchiha can do. Your brother already tried proving that. Will there be a difference between you and him? I surely don't see it. Naruto answered, mocking Itachi. My weak brother is blinded by his ambitions. Do not compare him to me. Itachi replied. He started to walk off into the cave alone, leaving Naruto outside. Naruto sat there and frowned. A dead man is still a dead man no matter how you look at it. His eyes growing red for a second. There is no such thing as a good man in this world, Itachi. Naruto said while staring into the cave. In Konoha 5 p.m. Tsunade let out a small yawn, stretching her arms. It was that time of day and the paperwork was just high enough to be her pillow. Just as she was about to put her head down, Shizune ran into the room, letting the doors bang against the wall as it opened. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade let out a small groan. There goes her afternoon nap. After a long day of paperwork and drinking sake, she deserved a nap. What is it now, Shizune? Unless half of Konoha was under attack by Akatsuki and demons, there was no way she was leaving her office. They're back, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade raised her eyebrow, not completely sure what she was talking about. Who's back? Team 7 and 10. Tsunade sat up. The news had her undivided attention. This was a lot better than doing some lousy paperwork. Well, go get them in here. I have some questions for them. Shizune hesitated for a second. They're currently in the hospital at the moment, Tsunade-sama. They ran into some problems while encountering Itachi and Kisame. Wondering what happened, Tsunade jumped out of her seat and made a dash for the door. Come on. Don't just stand there. We have to get down there. She barked out. Shizune quickly nodded her head and ran after her. With Ino. My god. I didn't think we traveled that far out from Konoha. Ino mentally cursed. She was a long way off from her destination. There was nothing but trees and more trees. It was already getting dark and she was deciding if she should set up camp or not. Is getting my revenge this important that it's driving me to keep going? I wonder what kept him going. Ino's expression suddenly changed. Somehow, images of him wandered into her mind. She wasn't even thinking about it. She started laughing as she rested against a tree. I must be going crazy. She thought back to the times she spent with the hyperactive blonde. Surprisingly, no matter how hard she tried, she had no memories of ever spending time with the blonde. Is this truly how much I know about Naruto? She asked herself. She couldn't remember anything about him, his likes and dislikes, his favorite hobbies, or even his birthday. She quickly dismissed those negative thoughts out of her head, wanting questions that could trigger a memory that she forgotten. There must be something about him that I knew. She thought back a bit further. She got her answer when she remembered something from their genin days. Flashback. Naruto. What do you plan on doing when you become older? Iruka asked. It was nearing the end of the exams and he always did this exercise. He wanted to ask the kids what their dreams and encourage them to follow it. He wanted to play a role in these kids' life, knowing that they might not have much of a life after they graduate. I'm going to be the greatest Hokage there ever was. Naruto shouted. He jumped on his desk and pointed towards the window. I will surpass the Yondaime and then everyone will see that I'm better than he is. The class burst out laughing, knowing that he was the class's dead last. A loser who couldn't achieve that dream no matter how hard he tried. You're a loser, Naruto. There's no way you could become Hokage. Why don't I become Hokage for you? I have a better chance than you. Heck, even Choji could become Hokage before you. Kiba shouted. Ino snorted. Get real, Kiba. The only person who could become Hokage is Sasuke-kun. She looked at her Sasuke-kun. The boy of her affections during her younger days. Naruto only smiled. That Tem couldn't hold a candle to my powers, Ino-chan. You're better off leaving him for me. Ino laughed once more. Get real, Naruto. Get real. Flashback end. Ino sighed. She really had no relevant information about him. She only had bits and pieces of information. Besides the fact that there was only a handful of blondes in the village. She had nothing. She did know that he was going out with Sakura for a while, but after they broke up, he just disappeared from their lives completely. Whenever she had hung out with the rest of the Rookie 9, Naruto was never there. No one even bothered to bring up his name, nor did they seem to care he was missing. A bit of guilt raced through her heart. Was it our fault he turned out like this? Would it have made a difference if one person cared? She tried to picture herself in his place, but it was difficult being Naruto. She couldn't imagine just being him. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she never really tried to understand Naruto, and because of that, she almost died by his hands. She shuddered at that thought. His cold blue eyes still engraved in her memories. Will you truly be happy when you get your revenge, Naruto? Is revenge the only path that a person that's been betrayed can take? She asked. There was no answer, not even a breeze of the night wind. She chuckled at herself. Of course no one was going to answer her. There was no one here in the first place. She looked up at the stars, searching for some sort of answer. What made you turn out this way, Naruto? Would it have been different if someone cared? As Ino continued back on her journey, it was by coincidence she missed a shooting star that happened to pass by. It was as if someone was listening to her. Konoha Hospital. Tsunade stood outside the door, catching her breath before entering. She couldn't just enter the room looking out of breath. She was the Hokage. She had an image to uphold. If they found out that she got tired from running here, she would lose respect from her fellow ninjas. She smiled as she heard laughing and talking inside. This was a good sign that everything was okay. As she opened the door, everyone continued to talk, not noticing her standing there. She let out a small cough, letting everyone know that she was there. I see that you're all okay. Shisho. Sakura replied while everyone else respectfully called her Hokage-sama. Tsunade nodded her head and entered the room with Shizune. I see that you're all back in one piece, with the exceptions of a few. She looked around the room. Sakura had bandages around her hand while Sasuke had them on his upper body. Shikamaru was sitting on a chair next to Choji's bed, keeping him company. Asuma was standing next to Kakashi, smoking a cigarette in a forbidden zone. As Tsunade looked around the room, she noticed that someone was missing. Where's that Yamanaka girl? Asuma took one last puff of his cigarette before smothering it on the floor. It was his duty to tell her. She was on his team since their Genin days, and as her Junin instructor, he will make sure that her death did not go in vain. She's gone, Hokage-sama. What do you mean she's gone? She couldn't have disappeared during a mission. Tsunade replied. It was against protocol to run away from a mission. That itself could sentence Ino to death if she was found by Anbu. Noticing that no one responded to her question, she looked around, everyone still with their heads down, avoiding her gaze. She didn't understand the silent treatment. There has to be something they weren't telling her. He took her. Asuma finally answered. That was the truth. No matter how much he tried to hide it, there was no use denying the fact that she was gone. Tsunade looked at the elder Sarutobi, trying to understand the meaning behind that sentence. We ran into Naruto Hokage-sama. Kakashi spoke up. Naruto. He's alive. Tsunade managed to stutter out. What was he doing there? Is he okay? No. I'll tell her. It was my fault things turned out like this. Asuma spoke up, interrupting Kakashi. You might want to sit down for this. It's a long story. Tsunade nodded, pulling up a chair. As Asuma retold their mission report in full details, Tsunade went into shock. She couldn't believe that Naruto had a part in this. He wouldn't do this. She tried to convince herself otherwise. There was no way Naruto was the one who attacked them. Why would he do this? She demanded. Shisho, it's true. Sakura sighed and lowered her head. He was probably working with Akatsuki. That's the only reason why he would show up there. Sakura fiddled with her broken hand, feeling a slight pain. Don't worry Hokage-sama. We'll get him next time. Sasuke confidently replied, wrapping his hands around Sakura's waist. Yeah. Sakura answered, leaning closer into his embrace. Tsunade felt a major migraine coming on. Get some rest and then I want you all in my office first thing tomorrow morning. Tsunade got up and left the room, giving them time to recuperate. Next morning 10 a.m. Excuse me Tsunade-sama. Sakura is here to see you. Tsunade looked up from her paperwork to her apprentice standing by the door. Tsunade nodded her head, acknowledging the request. Thank you Shizune. Shizune closed the door after Sakura entered, ensuring that the things that they were about to be discussing was not interrupted. Tsunade looked around, wondering what happened to the others. She wanted all of them in her office, not just one. Where are the others? They were just too exhausted to come. Sakura answered. After that mission, everyone deserved a day off. It had been hard on them all, losing Ino and all. Tsunade mumbled something about lazy ninjas before pointing to the seat next to Shizune. Sit. We have a lot to talk about. She cleared all the paperwork just for today. There was some part of the mission report that seemed fabricated. There was no way she could bring herself to the fact that Naruto had really committed these crimes. It was just too unbelievable. With Ino, I'm almost there. Ino told herself. She could almost taste it, she was almost home. As she got closer, she saw the new gates of Konoha. Tsunade-sama had invested a lot of time and effort into remaking these gates. She didn't understand why the Hokage would do something like that, but Shino once told her it served as a memorial to the ninjas that lost their lives during that fateful day. As she approached the front gate, she saw a young genin team composed of 2 girls and a boy leaving Konoha. She couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu as they walked past her. These girls were just like her when she first started, inexperienced, and from the looks that they were giving that boy, a fangirl. Oh well. They'll soon learn that life isn't all that glamorous. Ino thought. Her personal life hasn't changed much except that she was no longer interested in Sasuke. She preferred not to be dating and put her social life on hold due to her fellowship with Ibiki. When it came to dating, she had just a few qualities that she looked for in a man: handsome, strong, and knows what he wants in life. She wasn't going to settle for anything less. Her mind somehow conjured up an image of Naruto staring at her with his cold blue eyes. As she stared back into his blue eyes, she found that she was no longer afraid of them but was mesmerized by it. There was something in those eyes that captivated her. She immediately dismissed her thoughts and headed for the Hokage Tower. She had a score to settle with a certain pink-headed girl. Hell is about to be frozen over. Ino thought as she ran through the streets of Konoha. With Itachi and Naruto, we travel all night to come here and you're still not ready to bury him. You're wasting my time here, Itachi. Naruto coldly stated. Sitting against a rock was not his ideal place to be for the past hour. His patience was already running low and he was tempted with justing Itachi here and now. I'll be done when I'm done. Itachi replied with his eyes closed. He was currently in a silent prayer, paying his respects for his fallen comrade. I don't like it when people keep me waiting, Itachi. Do not make me wait. Naruto warned before disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving the Uchiha alone. Konoha Hokage Tower. So let me get this straight. You are saying that Naruto was the cause of all this? Tsunade asked, repeating the information one more time. She was having a hard time believing that the blonde would go to such lengths to do something like this. That's what really happened, Hokage-sama. Sakura answered. She still remembered the time his hollow eyes stared into her when they met. She shuddered at that memory. Before anyone else could speak, the doors blew open, revealing a familiar face. Ino, you're alive, Sakura squealed. She jumped up from her seat and ran to her friend. We all thought you were dead. She attempted to hug the blonde, but when she took a step closer, she found herself lying on the ground, unsure of what just happened. Don't touch me right now, Sakura. The only thing preventing me from you right now is the Hokage. Ino threatened. Ino, what is the meaning of this? Tsunade said, surprised to see such behavior happening in front of her. Ino walked away from Sakura and stood in front of Tsunade, her hands folded against her chest. It was obvious from her appearance that she probably ran all night to return home. I figure from your voice that you have a hard time believing a word that's coming out of her mouth. When Tsunade didn't say anything, Ino took it as a signal to continue. I did not die by Naruto's hand, as you can see. If you can overlook her exaggerated story, some parts of it are true. Tsunade nodded her head to continue, wondering where this was going. Then enlighten me as to which part was true. She put her chin above her hands, waiting for the story. Ino, Sakura asked. She was more shocked about the change in her best friend than the story itself. Sure, they were rivals, but they were always friends first. As Sakura looked Ino over, she could tell that there was something different about her. How are you here? We thought you. Sakura asked. She was really curious. Naruto looked pretty damn serious when he made that threat. Something must have happened between them if he just let her go like that. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys that I'm not dead. Ino sneered. She ignored the shocked look on Sakura's face as she continued on with her story. Did she ever tell you how she made that decision that almost left me for dead? Tsunade narrowed her eyes and stared at Sakura, wondering what Ino was talking about. What decision did she make? The decision that almost cost me my life. Ino yelled out. All that frustration and anger that she had built out was coming out at once. She figured that my death would mean something if Sasuke the both of them along with me. Tsunade dropped her jaw, shocked beyond anything she would have imagined from the new information. Sakura, is this true? Tsunade stared at her apprentice. Sakura didn't look ashamed at her actions. She stared right back at Ino, her glare matching Ino's glare. I did what was right. We all know about the sacrifices that ninjas make. It would have been better to see them dead than alive. Then why didn't you do it? Ino retorted. Because you were the one who got caught. Sakura yelled out. In an instant, what became a friendly chat erupted into a full-blown argument. The two girls were so into their shouting that they forgot that they were in the presence of the Hokage. Insults and harsh name-calling were thrown, and unfortunately for the spectators, it wasn't a fun fight to watch. Girls, Tsunade yelled out, getting their attention. Both of you have issues right now, and personally, I don't give a damn. You will settle this yourselves, but in either case, Sakura was justified in making the correct decision if you could see it as a correct decision. Tsunade closed her eyes, trying to make her headache go away. Not everything you learn is always the best course of action. She sat back down and pulled out a fresh sheet of paperwork. Get out before I decide to punish the both of you. Ino and Sakura quickly took the hint and left the room. Shizune sat there shaking her head in disappointment. You went easy on them. Tsunade looked up at her. Why are you still here? Don't you have some paperwork to do? Shizune frowned and disappeared, leaving her alone in the office. Tsunade sighed as everyone left the room. She stared at the piece of paper that she just yanked out. Criminal sightings. She read out loud. Ironic. Tsunade thought. They were discussing criminals, and this was the title of the bill she just yanked out. Just what have you done now, Naruto? Tsunade quickly crumpled the piece of paper and tossed it away. She sighed. She had a feeling that today was going to be a long day. With Ino and Sakura, both girls walked out of the office, arguing to the point where blood was ready to be spilled. Sakura was all up in Ino's face, her finger poking Ino on the chest. What the hell was that, Ino pig? Sakura shouted. You didn't have to go and do that. Ino snorted. What makes your life more interesting than mine? You had no right to make that decision. You know what, Ino? I'm tired of this. Let's settle this once and for all. Sakura challenged. She was tired of Ino's constant whining. She was going to prove to her that she was the best once and for all. She was going to prove to Ino that she wasn't the same girl that needed help from bullies all those years ago. Ino smirked, glad that Sakura finally got a good idea. At least now, I know there's something up there besides empty space. Training Field 9. You don't know how long I've been waiting for this, Sakura. Ino said as she started stretching. During her lonely journey back to Konoha, she had a lot of time to think about the fight that she wanted with Sakura. This was going to calm her anger, and she wasn't going to hold anything back. Sakura cracked her knuckles. You know you can't beat me. I wasn't the Hokage's apprentice for nothing. And I'm just the underprivileged girl that didn't get that special training. Ah, poor me. Ino replied, unimpressed by Sakura's status. Both girls stood about 10 feet away from each other, waiting for a signal that would begin their fateful match. Ino slipped into her usual stance, her right foot placed forward a bit. Sakura stood there, her glove on her hand. Since her right hand was still damaged, she didn't bother to put on a glove for her right. A single leaf flew into the field, twisting and twirling in the wind. As soon as the leaf touched the ground, both girls disappeared from sight. They exchanged blows at a fast pace, neither of them was thinking about anything else but winning the watch. Ino ducked under from a left-hand hook and twisted her body around, countering it with a hard left kick towards the ribs. Sakura saw her attack miss and quickly jumped away, avoiding the kick. As soon as Sakura landed, she flipped through some hand seals before slamming them on the ground. Doden. Dorio Dango, Sakura dug her hands into the earth before pulling out a chuck of the earth. Take this, Ino. She chucked it towards Ino, wondering what she would do now. Ino's eyes widened as she saw a huge boulder coming towards her. She jumped away, avoiding the attack. You're so slow, Sakura whispered into Ino's ear. Ino turned around and performed a roundhouse kick in midair but found that no one was there. Where are you aiming? Ino saw Sakura standing on top of the boulder and threw a kunai towards her. The kunai went through Sakura and embedded itself on it. The truth soon hit Ino as she realized that she was trapped in a genjutsu. Almost had me, Sakura. She held up her hands to her chest. Kai, she cried out, dispelling the illusion. She looked around for Sakura, trying to see where she was. The dust was still in the air, allowing Sakura to hide anywhere and buy time to formulate a plan. Near Training Field 9. Why are we here again, Kiba? Shikamaru yawned. He didn't appreciate being dragged out of his bed so early in the morning. Stop your whining, Shikamaru. Akamaru and I saw Ino and Sakura heading towards this training field in a rush. I think they're going to fight. Lee shook his head. Kiba-san. Why would they fight? They're best friends. Before anyone could answer him, a loud eruption occurred and more fighting could be heard. Never mind, Lee quickly said as he ran towards the fighting. Everyone else ran after him, not wanting to miss the fight. Training Field 9. Futon. Datapa, Ino cried out as she finished her hand seals. Soon, winds came in from all directions, blowing everything away. She had channeled more chakra than usual for this technique. She knew Sakura was hiding somewhere, planning, but she was not going to have the chance. Take this, Sakura shouted out as she appeared from behind Ino. Ino didn't have time to prepare for the impact as she felt Sakura landed a left hook on her stomach. Ino was sent flying hard into the tree, causing it to split in half. She coughed up some blood as she pushed herself to get back up. You lost, Ino. Give up before I beat you down to an inch of your life. Sakura said confidently. She walked over to Ino and kicked her in the ribs, sending her former friend into the ground. Ino slowly got up, taking deep breaths. She was lucky that she somehow used the momentum of Sakura's kick and threw herself away, avoiding the attack. I was never the obedient ninja type of girl. Ino held her hands together and smirked. I'm sure you remember this one. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Sakura narrowed her eyes as she saw 5 Inos standing in front of her. She gripped her left hand tightly and charged in. She went up to the first clone and went to knock it out of existence. Doden. Doro Geishi. Ino whispered as she quickly put her hands to the ground. An earth wall shot up from the ground, but that didn't stop Sakura from shattering the wall. When Sakura broke through the wall, she was surprised to see Ino standing in front of her with her hands in an oval shape. Sakura immediately recognized the seal and ran for it, but several of Ino's clone rose up from the ground, grabbing her ankles and prevented her from moving. Shintenshin no Jutsu. Ino yelled. Sakura watched helplessly as she was struck by the jutsu. Ino felt her spirit leaving her body and entering Sakura. From there, Ino had a sinister smirk on her face. Let's see how pain you can withstand. Ino raised her right hand and Sakura's body responded. You there. Ino pointed to a clone. Squeeze this hand as hard as you can. The clone nodded and started to squeeze Sakura's already damaged hand. Ah! Ino and Sakura both screamed. The pain from just squeezing it was unbearable, but it must be done. By forcing Sakura's hand to be injured, she can further extract her revenge. Ino endured the pain for another minute before switching back to her body. As soon as she entered her original body, she felt herself breathing heavily and feeling some leftover pain. She glanced towards Sakura, who managed to destroy the clone holding her hand. Noticing that Sakura was preoccupied with her damaged hand, Ino leapt into the air and landed behind Sakura. She took advantage of Sakura's pain and smashed her elbow into Sakura's face, causing her to be distorted by the pain. Seeing as Sakura was too distorted to defend herself, Ino continued her assault, throwing a fury of punches towards her chest before grabbing her right hand again. Sakura groaned from the pain and tried to fight back, but Ino was currently applying pressure to her right hand. She gritted her teeth as she felt herself being thrown into the air. By the time she realized what was going on, Several of Ino's clones were already up in the air waiting for her. A clone came up behind her and executed a roundhouse kick to her back, sending her from one clone and straight into another. The brutal assault continued until two of the clones combined their kick and sent her spiraling towards the ground. Sakura let out a small cry of pain as she hit the ground hard, causing it to split apart from the force. Ino jumped into the air, using one of her clones as leverage. She found herself hovering above Sakura long enough for her to execute her final move. This is where I prove that I'm goddamn better than you. Ino came down hard on Sakura. The impact from her attack caused the ground to split apart even more. QQ Danchaku. Ino whispered as time suddenly stood still. She could feel her body weight applied more force on Sakura's body. She could hear her muscles becoming more and more tense with each passing second. Sakura released a bone-chilling scream as she felt Ino's attack connect with her stomach. Her body was experiencing a whole new meaning of pain. It was just indescribable. Death was a far better option than lying here in agony. Ino slowly removed her knee from Sakura's stomach, shifting her weight from her left side to the right. Sakura screamed even more as Ino pressed her weight on her right hand, crushing the remaining bones in her hand. Sakura gritted her teeth as she kept the tears from falling out. The pain was excruciating to the point where it was unbearable. Sakura mustered all the chakra that she get and threw Ino off her. Ino flipped in the air and landed on her feet, waiting for Sakura to get up. Come, I'm not done with you yet. Ino stood there, her left hand held out, taunting her to get up. Who do you think is going to win? Kiba randomly spoke up. Everyone was silent. They were too focused with watching the fight. They're both at their limits right now. Shino replied, speculating the girls. This is where their paths end. One will fall while the other will walk. Whatever the outcome, there will be changes. Both of the girls stood there, feeling exhausted from the match. Sakura wiped the blood off her mouth before clutching her right hand. I could have you thrown in jail for doing this to me, Ino. The number. Cut the crap, Sakura. Ino spoke up, interrupting Sakura. In a fight, do you really think ninjas follow the rules? Do you think Naruto followed the damn rules when he let me live? Sakura became furious at Ino's behavior. Rules is what sets us apart from criminals like Naruto. It is because of people like him that makes the rest of us look bad. Ino glared at her former friend. Well, I remember a certain someone that already disobeyed a rule. What was it again? Something about deserting their teammates. Ino threw out. Shikamaru sighed. This is so troublesome. Why can't women just leave their emotions at the door? Care to repeat that sentence, Shikamaru-kun? A soft but angry voice spoke up. Shikamaru didn't need to turn around to recognize the voice. Ah, I didn't mean it like that, Hinata. He knew better than to face an angry Hyuga. Before Shikamaru could explain his answer, Kiba eagerly yelled out thoughts. To hell with the rules. Finish it. In the past, there were no laws, no regulations that were established to govern ninjas. It was back during the era of the Shadaime Hokage where he decided that it was barbaric to conduct themselves without honor, without proper laws. It was for that purpose that the Ninja Handbook was created. Both girls released a battle cry and charged head-on, determined to end this with one final blow. Sakura charged in with her left hand arched back, preparing to slam it into Ino's face. Ino saw the fist coming and ducked. There was no way that she could match Sakura in strength, and she knew it. She had to time her counterattack at the right moment or else she would lose this match. When Sakura got within Ino's striking range, she saw the moment that she was waiting for. Now, Ino opened her fist and let the palm slide harmlessly off her skin, allowing Ino to respond and counter with several quick jabs to her ribs before ending it up with a fierce uppercut. Sakura felt herself losing consciousness as she dropped to the ground. I hope that someday, you'll open your eyes. Ino stated as she was breathing heavily. Before anyone could run up and congratulate them on the great fight, Ino disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving everyone to wonder what was going on. Sakura-san, are you okay? Lee frantically asked. Tenten put a hand on Lee's shoulder, assuring the young Junin that the girl was okay. Lee tried to lift her up but Shino beat him to it. You're still injured. You shouldn't stress yourself over this. Lee sighed and allowed Shino to carry Sakura to the hospital. That was a boring fight. Shikamaru lazily remarked. He didn't bother going with them to the hospital. It was just too much of a hassle. This was far better than a stuffy room. With Ino. Ino ran away from the training ground at high speeds, her mind frantically searching for a place where she can be alone. She needed time to think about all this. As she ran deeper into the woods, she was taking so many twists and turns that she didn't really pay attention to where she was going and found herself in a field full of flowers. There were so many different kinds of flowers there, each unique and different. The sight before her took her breath away. As she walked slowly into the field, being careful about not destroying the floral, she soon forgot her worries as she began to identify the flowers. When she was a child, she spent most of her afternoons at her parents' flower shop, and because of that, she was able to name most of the flowers. Growing up in a flower shop taught her to appreciate the beauty of these flowers and the meanings that they symbolize. She let out a small smile as she sat down, tears starting to flow down her cheeks. Is this what I wanted? Revenge is supposed to make a person feel good, but why do I feel so miserable? Ino asked herself. Even though she got her revenge, there was that feeling of regret inside of her. No matter how much she told herself that Sakura deserved it, the pain wouldn't go away. It just stayed in her heart, making Ino feel guilty. I guess all those stories about revenge being sweet was utter bullshit. Ino said, tears forming in her eyes. Pretty soon, they made their way down her cheeks and onto the ground. She didn't understand why she was crying. Ninjas don't cry. The only time they cry was over a death of a friend. A family member. That was the only time allowed to cry. That was in the rules. Rule number 34, a ninja must never show their emotions. Ino quietly laughed to herself. I sound like Sakura now. She gazed up into the sky, the gray cloudy skies. It almost seemed like the heavens were also crying with her, sharing her pains. She couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe she wasn't truly alone. With Naruto and Itachi, Itachi walked out of the cave, his mind and body both exhausted. After spending almost 3 hours in there, it would make anyone exhausted. He noticed that the area around the cave was still in one piece, which meant that Naruto was nowhere to be found. He activated his Sharingan and looked around, trying to pick up any faint traces of chakra residue. He took a few steps forward, trying to locate his wayward partner. I told you I hate waiting. You must not care about who you're dealing with. A cold voice whispered from behind Itachi. Itachi felt his body frozen with fear. He couldn't even turn his head around. Was I injected with the drug again? Itachi thought. He didn't feel anything pricking him on his back. He tried to move his mouth to respond, but the muscles were tightly contracted together, refusing to move. I didn't inject you with anything. The voice answered. Did he just read my mind? Itachi thought but shook off that ridiculous thought. There was no way that telepathy exists in this world. It was just impossible. The Sharingan comes very close, but there is no true bloodline that allows a person to read thoughts. It was just impossible. Do you want to play a game? Naruto spoke again, but this time his voice seemed to be very distant. Itachi could feel his body responding to the voice, as if it was afraid of him. It wasn't from the fact that he couldn't move that scared him. It was the fact that his body was refusing to move. Naruto stepped out from the shadows, his cloak hiding most of his physical features. Naruto nodded his head once and Itachi felt his body returning to normal. He moved his fingers around, glad that his body was in his control once more. "What did you do to me?" Itachi asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. Naruto turned his head, ignoring the elder Uchiha. "I'm not obligated to tell you anything." The blonde started to walk away, missing the glare that Itachi gave him. With Ino, it was already nightfall when Ino finally returned to her apartment. She didn't plan on staying out that late anyway. It wasn't because she wasn't allowed to stay out so late, but rather, the thought of going back to an empty apartment didn't exactly thrill her. Spending her time in that field of flowers was just the thing that she needed. She was surrounded by flowers, the one thing that reminded her of her parents. When she was sitting there by herself, she was able to meditate in peace, regain the inner Ino. They say that jewelry and flowers are a girl's best friend, but when you can't afford any of those, just give a girl her personal space and she'll do just fine. As soon as she entered her apartment, she immediately headed straight for the bathroom. All she wanted to do is just soak in there until her skin was wrinkly, not that she would do that anyway. Her apartment wasn't small, it was just the opposite. It was a 2-bedroom apartment fitted with everything that she could need. She never bothered to get a roommate, she just wanted to be alone. She stifled a quiet moan as she entered the bathtub, the warm, comfortable feeling that she missed while she was out completing her missions. She felt her troubles just washing away and everything in the world was okay. Almost nothing could tear her away. Almost nothing except that blonde. Damn that evil, irritating blonde. Whenever she was alone, she couldn't stop picturing him in her mind. It was almost like an obsession. She didn't know what it was about him. Was it because of his status, his power, or his presence? Ino sighed. She didn't know what it was. There was just something about him that made him from everyone else, something that made him different. Whatever it was making her think about him and she didn't like it. She remembered the last day that she ever saw of him. It was that day where everything literally went to hell. She remembered him talking about some speech about friends, but she paid him no attention. She just went along with the flow, throwing insults at the boy and was blinded by the rational judgment to logically do an investigation herself. Her mentor, Ibiki, would be so disappointed at her. "Damn, I'm no better than the rest of them," Ino said as she dunked her head into the water. She was just like the villagers, treating him like the plague after finding out what he was. She screamed underwater, wanting to release her guilty conscience. She didn't want to feel this way anymore, and to make it worse, he had spared her life. That was the thing that pissed her off the most. She wouldn't be like this if he hated her, but then again, maybeing her wasn't his motive. There was just too many unanswered questions. Tomorrow morning, Ino briskly walked into the Hokage Tower, feeling nervous. Having practicing the speech that she was going to give the Hokage, she was a bit jumpy. She walked up to the front desk, greeting Shizune. "Good morning, Shizune-san. Is Tsunade-sama in right now?" Shizune turned around and stared at the almost closed door. She put her ear next to the door and listened to it. No snoring. Good, it meant that she was awake. "Go right ahead, Ino," Shizune replied with a smile. Ino thanked her and walked in. Tsunade was reading a newspaper when Ino walked in, not really noticing her presence. Ino knocked on the door lightly, hoping to catch her attention. "Excuse me, Hokage-sama." "Yes." Tsunade looked up and saw the young Yamanaka standing at her door. "What can I do for you today?" I was wondering if I could get some time off," Ino answered. Tsunade choked on her tea, surprised by her request. "What? I want some time off," Ino repeated. She could understand just how hard it is to let one of their best take time off, but she needed this. If she doesn't take this time off, she might end up doing something that she will regret later on. Tsunade narrowed her eyes, carefully studying the girl. And what are your reasons for taking time off? This is just something that I have to do. Ino fiddled around with her fingers, feeling nervous as the Hokage stared her down. She's been here plenty of times reporting mission reports, but this was different. She was asking the Hokage about something personal here. Tsunade shook her head. That isn't a good enough reason. You must have a personal objective here. Why don't you tell me what's going on and I'll see what I can do for you? Ino hesitated for a bit, unsure if she should tell her. She spent the entire night preparing for this, but here she was, standing in front of Tsunade speechless, unable to remember any words. I just want some time away from my friends. Is this about what happened on your last mission? Tsunade inquired. She saw the look in Ino's eyes, the pain that she was trying to mask. It was normal that everyone experiences hurt sometime in their life, but it is how they heal from it that sets them apart from everyone else. Hi, Ino slowly answered. She couldn't be around her friends right now. She wasn't ready to forgive them yet. It was just too painful. Tsunade sighed. 6 months, Ino. I'm giving you 6 months to do whatever that you must do, but after that, I'm assigning you back on the active duty list. Do you understand me? Ino nodded her head eagerly. She was expecting 2 months at max, but 6 months was even better. Thank you, Hokage-sama. She bowed her head and left the room. Tsunade watched the girl leave her office. She had a similar look that Naruto had in his eyes when she saw him without his mask. It was that tiny spark of hurt. The human heart had a limit on how much pain it can handle. Too much and the person will crack. If only your parents were still alive, Ino. She couldn't think more about this issue. Ino has to deal with her problems by herself. She was a strong girl, she should be able to do it. With Naruto. Naruto was walking around the forest until he felt a familiar presence coming up from behind. Did you finally catch up? Naruto inquired. He didn't even need to turn around to know who it was. Itachi walked up next to him, not even out of breath. You slowed down, he replied in a monotone voice. I don't remember the way. Naruto stated. Itachi turned his head, as if he was searching for something. It doesn't matter. We're here. Naruto frowned. They were in the middle of a forest. There was nothing around here but trees and more trees. They weren't even near Kase no Kuni. Here is where. Itachi pointed towards a grove of vines was growing between 2 large trees. The base. Naruto looked around and saw nothing that even remotely resembled a base. If you're wasting my time, Itachi, I swear I will. You'll what? Itachi spoke up, staring Naruto in the eye. Kill me. You can't me. You need me. Naruto glared back. I've been known to defy rumors. Naruto walked up for a closer examination, noticing that it was a genjutsu covering the area. A very large one, in fact. Itachi approached the vines and touched it. The ring on his finger started to light up. The vines themselves started to split apart, granting them entrance to a hidden cave. Naruto walked in, amazed at the formation. There was no way he would have figured out the location of the base by himself. It was just too well hidden. Greetings, Uzumaki-san. A cold voice greeted him. I assure you, Uzumaki-san. Those rumors were gravely mistaken. Pain answered, his eyes boring into Naruto. Naruto took a step forward, keeping his eyes on the infamous Akatsuki leader. Rumors are merely fabrications of the truth. To a certain extent, they might even hold a little bit of truth. Naruto felt a slight change in the movements and his eyes now noticed that pain was gone. Knowing where the leader could have gone, he allowed a fleeting smirk to cross his face. Is this real enough? Pain coldly whispered from behind, his right arm holding a weapon to Naruto's throat. Naruto felt the cold tip of the kunai, his eyes confirming his suspicions. But am I real enough? The blonde shinobi replied curtly. Pain narrowed his eyes as his hands moved with a swift motion, slitting the throat. His expression didn't change when the Naruto he captured disappeared in a puff of smoke. Are you done testing me? Pain asked, his hands retreating back into his cloak. Naruto slowly stepped away from the shadows of the cave. He glanced towards Pain, a stoic expression on his face. I wanted to see your skills with my own eyes. I refuse to work for anyone who is weaker than I am. A weak leader can only command weak warriors. Then I hope my performance didn't disappoint you, Uzumaki Naruto. Itachi stood there, watching both men closely. It looks like he was momentarily forgotten, but he didn't mind nor care. He did his job and that was all there is to it. As the two men continued to glare at each other, Itachi could feel fear intent rising. His body unconsciously started to twitch, a response to the amount of intent released. Never in his life had he felt this much. It was indescribable but, at the same time, excited him. He could feel the adrenaline rushing through his veins. Uzumaki Naruto, you will be my stepping stone. A small sadistic grin found its way up on Itachi's face, growing bigger with each passing moment. Here stood two men, glaring each other down. Two men who were labeled as highly dangerous by the 5 great ninja villages. They are legends among legends. Their names strike fear into the hearts of many. Each with a power that would someday change the course of history. Come Uzumaki Naruto. We have some matters to discuss. Pain spoke up, ending their little staring contest. He turned around and disappeared, leaving Itachi and Naruto behind. Naruto looked around, a disgruntled expression on his face. Where's the freaking door? He grumbled. Itachi merely responded by pointing the blonde in the right direction. Konoha. Yamanaka Flower Shop. It was a cloudy day in Konoha, but elsewhere, there was a person who was not affected by the weather. Not a single bit. Ino Yamanaka had a bright smile on her face as she waltzed around her flower shop. She picked up different type of flowers, breathing in their lovely aromas. Ino never felt better in her life. As she continued to waltz around the flower shop, she could feel her troubles melting away. A smile tugged on her lips as she sprayed some water on the flowers, making them look fresh. She heard an elder speak something once about flowers, the raw beauty that they held. Flowers were created to conceal the sins of the world by showing the beauty instead. She didn't get what that old geezer meant back then, but now, she has taken those words to heart. There was too much unnecessary bloodshed in this world. She smiled as she picked up several white lilies and brought them over to the counter. As Ino worked, she hummed a melody that her father taught her when she was 5. While her friends were out completing missions and moving on with their life, she was stuck in the past, cherishing the moments that she no longer had. It wasn't because she didn't want to move on. It was because there was nothing to move on to. She was content with just being here in the present, taking her sweet time. A sudden chime roused Ino from her thoughts, alerting her to someone's presence in her shop. When she looked up, she was surprised to see an all too familiar face. Shikamaru. Ino greeted her longtime friend. She hasn't seen him since they got back from that mission. What are you doing here? Shikamaru chuckled quietly. No reason. I was just passing by. Ino gave him a weird look before going back to her flowers. Shikamaru shrugged off the look and continued to just watch. He took a seat beside the counter and watched in silence. The way Ino's eyes seemed to glow every time she picked up a flower. You seem different, the Nara whispered. People change, Shika. Some for the better. Some for the worst. She replied without looking up. All the things that happened to me recently were like a sign, telling me to be more observant and not take life for granted. It makes me sad on how kids these days don't realize what a dangerous job they're getting into. Wow, Ino, that's pretty deep. So how are you doing? I'm fine, Ino answered. Before Ino could further expand on that, the chime on the door suddenly rang again, signaling that another customer has entered her shop. Excuse me, a loud voice shouted. Is there anyone here? Ino stepped away from the counter and into plain sight to greet her customer. Hello, what can I get for you today? She didn't recognize this young man, but she felt a strong sense of familiarity with him. The untamed brunette hair in his face has a striking resemblance to someone she knew very well. The young boy turned his head, his eyes searching for something. I'm looking for an Ino Yamanaka. She's about this tall and has blonde hair. The boy made hand motions to give the lady a description. That's me. What can I do for you? The young man broke into a smile. I heard you ran into my Nissan. Ino gave him a confused look. Nissan, I'm afraid you got your facts messed up. I don't even know who your Nissan is, let alone who you are. Oh, that's right. You only met me once when Uncle Asuma introduced me to his team. My name is Sarutobi Konohamaru and I believe you ran into Naruto Nissan. Ino dropped her jaw. She couldn't believe it. This brat was that young boy that Asuma-sensei introduced to them all those years ago. She couldn't believe it. She quickly gave him a look over and found that he did remind her of her sensei. Wait a minute. Naruto is your Nissan? Ino almost shouted out. She couldn't believe it. This boy, the heir to the Sarutobi clan, calls Naruto, the rank SS ninja, his Nissan. Are you shitting me? She yelled out. Konohamaru narrowed his eyes. Naruto Nissan isn't a bad man. He hasn't done anything wrong. Not done anything wrong. Ino raised her hand and started to count off, saying things as information came to her mind. Ino, drop it. Shikamaru spoke up, his tone changing from his normal lazy one to a more serious one. Yo Konohamaru. The Nara waved. Yo. Didn't see you here, Shikamaru. Konohamaru waved back. Before Ino could protest, Shikamaru spoke up. Ino, have you ever known Naruto personally? Ino began to open her mouth but then closed it. She couldn't find anything to say. No, she replied, shaking her head. Shikamaru continued, trying to get his point across. Did you ever hang out with Naruto? Again, Ino shook her head. Then don't judge people based on who they are. Didn't Asuma-sensei teach us that? Even though he is the son of the third Hokage, he never rubbed it in our face. He taught us to learn both sides of the story before judging. We are ninjas. We must look underneath the underneath. Ino stood there baffled. Never before has Shikamaru lectured her like this. She has been told she was troublesome and such by him but never lectured. He better have a good reason for embarrassing her like this. Naruto and Asuma-sensei are two completely different people. Ino growled. Asuma-sensei would have never betrayed us. He would never think abouting people he cared about. Ino, have you ever known Naruto to the point where he was more than just a hyperactive brat? Ino gritted her teeth. Shikamaru knew what her answer was. He didn't need to continue with these damn questions. Damn Shikamaru and his intelligence. Why does he always use logic to point stuff out? Even though Naruto Nissan is a wanted man, he has my respect. Konohamaru answered forcefully. He considered Naruto his older brother, someone who acknowledged him for who he was inside, not by his name. Yeah, okay, brat. Just try saying that when he's holding a kunai to your throat. Ino retorted. Just as she started to walk away, Shikamaru stopped her. Sit down and get ready for a story. Not left with any other choice, Ino reluctantly gave in. Half of her was still pissed at what Naruto did, but another half was intrigued by him. This was a blessing in disguise and she knew it. Akatsuki base. I have a job for you. Pain kept on his stoic face as he sat on a chair that vaguely resembled a throne. He had his hands folded on his lap, waiting for Naruto to enter the room. "You're not one for subtleties, are you, Pain?" "Neither are you," Pain replied. "So what do you want of me?" Naruto bluntly asked. Pain lowered his head slightly and narrowed his eyes. "Heart of the waterfall," he spoke up cryptically. There was no hint of teasing or anger in his voice. Just the voice of a dead man. A stone that is said to grant its user immeasurable power at a cost. The stone would ultimately merge itself with the user before taking their life. It was rumored to be a story, a myth that arose during the First Civil War in Tokigakure. Naruto tilted his head slightly. What does the leader of Akatsuki, whose members are on par with a village cage, want with a useless stone? Pain didn't answer. His only physical response was closing his eyes for a moment. When they reopened, his Rinnegan fiercely glared at the Jinchuriki. "That is none of your concern, Uzumaki. If you wish to join us, you will retrieve the stone within a week. Consider this a test. If you fail, do not bother to come back. I have no need for weaklings in my organization." Pain coldly answered. Naruto released a small growl, letting Pain know his discontent. "You worry too much about the little things, Pain. It is I who should be judging you. Remember that." Naruto took one last look before disappearing out of the cave. Making his way towards Tokigakure, his dull crystal blue eyes were now burning with a raging fire. "I'll show you, Pain. I'll show everyone that Uzumaki Naruto is not someone who they should look down upon." Back in the cave, Pain-sama, Itachi entered the room and bowed. "Is it wise to send Uzumaki to complete this mission?" "That is none of your concern, Itachi. Follow him and make sure he doesn't do anything rash that would upset the mission." "Hi, Pain-sama." Itachi bowed once more and left the room. A small smile formed on Pain's lips as he sensed Itachi leaving the cave. Soon, salvation will be here and there will no longer be any bloodshed. We can finally accomplish what we started all those years ago. A flash from within Pain's eyes flickered before dying out. "I understand." The infamous leader of Akatsuki stepped into the shadows and disappeared as well, leaving the cave uninhabited. Konoha, Yamanaka flower shop. So there he was, walking into our training ground just an hour later after completing his rank S mission. Anyone else would have shrugged us off to rest, but Naruto Nissen didn't. He came in with his full Anbu gear and stuff and started his demonstration on how to use ninjutsu effectively. I can tell he was really into it because he wasn't so distant, but after his demonstration, he had to leave quickly. Something about reporting back to the old hag. Konohamaru started to imitate his older brother from that day but failed horribly. He couldn't get the facial expression right, but it brought a laugh out of Ino. Who would have thought that Naruto actually cares about anyone besides himself? Ino muttered out loud. "Well, there was this one time 2 months ago where we were coming back from a mission." Shikamaru rubbed his chin as he started to recall the events. "You were knocked out by a surprise attack from a group of missing nins while me and Choji were ambushed from behind. We thought it was over for you, but then this Anbu appeared in front of your body, shielding you from harm. Before we could get over there, the missing nins in his area were dead within a second. That guy must have been powerful because they were already dead before they took a step forward. I still don't know who that Anbu was. You guys never told me anything." Ino glared at Shikamaru, who chuckled nervously. "Well, he carried you all the way back to Konoha. All 2 hours, Ino." Shikamaru put some emphasis on the last part. "By the time we got to the hospital, the Anbu was already standing next to you with his mask removed. I got a quick look before he disappeared in a puff of smoke." Ino leaned in, her eyes widening a little. She was anxious to know who her savior was. She felt her heart beating faster than usual. She remembered his strong arms and how safe she felt by just being held by him. The only thing she could remember about the Anbu was that his mask was that of a kitsune. It was Naruto. Shikamaru stared at her, surprised at her answer. Why would you say that, Ino? Ino only smiled. There was no one in the history of Anbu to ever don a kitsune mask. It just seemed right that Naruto would wear it as a representation of something else. Shikamaru sighed. If you figured this out sooner, why couldn't you have said so? It would have saved me a lot of effort. Geez, you're so troublesome. Ino smiled sweetly at Shikamaru before slapping him on the back of his head. Care to repeat that? Shikamaru only muttered something under his breath as he got up. What did you say? Ino threatened. He said troublesome woman. Konohamaru spoke up. Shikamaru shot him a death glare, but he felt Ino coming closer. I'll get you later, Konohamaru. Shikamaru quickly disappeared, leaving Ino with no target. So Konohamaru, Ino turned around, facing the boy. What is it about Naruto that you consider him a brother? The young Sarutobi grinned at her. We shared the same dream of becoming Hokage. Even though he no longer has that dream, I will become Hokage for him. Ino sighed. Maybe you should give up on Naruto, Konohamaru. He's nothing but a cold-bloodeder. Associating yourself with him will get you nowhere. The next words that came out of Konohamaru's mouth shocked her. The boy's mood instantly changed and she knew she hit a nerve. What she didn't know was that Konohamaru held Naruto in the highest regard. The outcome was a very enraged Sarutobi Konohamaru. It was frightening how his intent leaked out. For a minute there, she swore that she could see the Sandaime standing right behind the boy. Watch what you say, you old hag. He might be a cold-bloodeder, but it was because of you and this village that turned him this way. Next time you disrespect him, I will not hesitate to crush you. Whether you are a student of my uncle or not. Konohamaru's eyes flickered like a raging fire. The tone of his voice demanded authority. Ino wanted to shout something back but found that she suddenly lost her voice. If Nissan wanted to you, he would have done so, but since he spared your life, he must have seen something in you. Consider it his gift. Without looking back, the angry Sarutobi heir left the flower shop. He could feel his blood boiling, but deep inside, he wasn't angry at her. His anger was directed at the villagers for their ignorance and hatred. Naruto Nissan, next time we meet, I'll prove to you that I have surpassed you. Konohamaru whispered as he exited the shop. Only when I defeat you will it prove that I am finally worthy of becoming Hokage. He thrust his fist to the skies, as if he was making a statement. Until then, don't die, Nissan. Inside the flower shop, Ino watched as Konohamaru stormed out. She slowly dropped to the floor, her knees finally giving out on her. Finally getting over her initial shock, she managed to let out a small whisper. Why would he defend Naruto like this? She clutched her hands against her chest. Maybe it's time I start digging a little deeper. 2 days later, Takigakure. It was already nightfall when the blonde Jinchuriki reached his destination. As he walked past the waterfall, he reminisced at a certain memory. It was about 8 years ago since he last stepped foot into this cave. It was back during his genin days when he was a carefree idiot. Back then, he was out to save this village, now he's back once more to steal something. Oh, the irony. If he wasn't swimming underwater, he would be somewhat amused right now. It took Naruto a good 3 minutes to swim to the end, and when he finally surfaced, he was greeted with a familiar sight. The place hasn't really changed much. It was mostly still the same buildings, same bridge. As he swam over to the edge of the village, he carefully listened for sounds of voices and footsteps. When he heard nothing, he quickly jumped out of the river and began his mission to find the stone. Elsewhere in Taigakure, Shibuki-san, is this really necessary to take a walk right now? A rough but feminine voice spoke out. We're here to guard you, but you're not making this job any easier. Gomen Hana-san, but there is a reason for my walk. Shibuki looked around. A small smile appeared on his lips as he touched a nearby building. Ever since I became the village leader, it has been my job to ensure their safety. I watched this village with an unstable economy turn into what it is now, a functional village where we can finally be proud of it. Yash. Shibuki-san has the flames of youth burning deeply within his soul. Lee shouted. Lee-san, please refrain from making so much noise. You're disturbing the villagers. Aburame Shibi spoke up in a monotone voice that was similar to his son. Excuse us, Shibuki-san, but Hana-san has a point. It is best that we return to the mansion. We have a big day ahead of us tomorrow. Shibuki nodded his head. Thank you for your concern, Shibi-san. Just as Shibuki took a step forward, Hana immediately held her arm out, stopping the man from advancing. Hold on, she quietly whispered. Her companion started to emit a small but fierce growl. You hear that as well, Mitsu? Lee slowly stepped in front of Hana, his head quickly searching the area. I don't see anything, Hana-san. Lee whispered. There's someone here. Do you doubt the noses of the Inuzuka clan? Hana hastily answered. Shibi made no effort to restrain the two as he also was searching. His bugs were going crazy from inside. He could feel their fear, and that was the thing that scared him the most. Be on full alert. We don't know who we're dealing here. Look. Shibuki stuttered out, his fingers pointing straight ahead. The Konoha team turned their heads and saw someone walking towards them. Each of them could feel the power just radiating off this person, and by one look, he or she was truly someone to be feared. Naruto walked forward towards the group. He heard a loud voice earlier and decided to check it out. As he slowly made his way over, he could feel their presence, feel their fear, and he liked it. He kept his hands inside his brown cloak, waiting to see what these fools would do. What do we do, Shibi-san? Hana asked, but before the Aburame could answer, Lee spoke up. We will defeat this enemy with our flames of youth. Lee, do you not see how strong this person is? Hana growled out. All the better to fight. We aren't Junins from Konoha from nothing. Lee replied. The group stood their ground, decided to take Lee's advice. With the leader of the Aburame clan and the second best taijutsu specialist in Konoha here, there was no way they would lose. When the hooded figure got into sight, the Konoha ninjas had their guard up. What are you doing out so late, stranger? Lee bluntly asked. Naruto paid no attention to his question as he secretly found a smirk on his face. He pointed slowly to Rock Lee. Rock Lee, age 21, Junin. Second best taijutsu specialist in Konoha. Past team members were Hyuga Neji and Tenten under the guidance of Maeda Gai, the leading taijutsu specialist in Konoha. Next, Naruto pointed his finger towards Hana. Inuzuka Hana, age 26, a low-level Junin rank from Konoha who works as a vet in her spare time. You and your companion, Mitsu, were once known as the Shining Flower because of your combined techniques. Finally, Naruto pointed his finger towards Shibi. Aburame Shibi, age 45, also a Junin rank ninja. You are the leader of the Aburame clan who specializes in Kikai bugs. The bugs feed on the host's chakra system, but in return, they do their